Okay, welcome back to the Investigative Journal on this November 10th, 2015 day on our calendar. I'm your host, Greg Anthony. You're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com. You can listen to my show every evening from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. That is Pacific time on FirstAmendmentRadio.com. My show is called the Investigative Journal, the long-running show. Over 10 years I've been doing this, and I don't think there's a stone I haven't tried to uncover. I'm sure there's more out there regarding the Vatican-led New World Order, and I coined that phrase for a reason, because sometimes we are mentally and intellectually challenged in this country regarding the connections between the Vatican and world leaders. Now, I feature a story that I've covered for years regarding the Tony Alamo Ministry, and I've watched how when a ministry becomes successful in doing good works, and they're not afraid to talk about the Vatican's role in the formation of our country, in its deceptive role in politics, and also how the Bible in the book of Revelation pinpoints that organization as the Antichrist. Now, when you send out millions and millions of brochures, when you have 3 successful ministries functioning in this country, and millions of people are catching on to this story, many overseas, as well as over 400,000 hits a week on your website, the Vatican and the New World Order, you've got their attention. And so the targeting began 40 years ago for the Alamo Ministry, and Tony Alamo was no stranger to it, and he fought hard, in a sense, not offensively, but defensively, to try and keep the ministry going and this word out, because he felt it was important. Because of that, he spent 4 or 5 years in jail for bogus IRS charges. He was constantly being attacked on the internet by the mainstream and the alternative media. And then finally, in 2008, they raided his ministry in Fauquier, Arkansas, and he was sentenced on bogus charges under the Mann Act for 175 years, and he sits in jail now. He is 7 years later, after most of his appeals have been exhausted, ignored by the corrupt justice system. Now, I've been involved in journalism as well as law. I have a law degree, and I said this a long time ago, that the most endangered species in this country is an honest judge. And I don't claim to say that you can't get justice somewhere in this system. On the lower court cases, yes, but when you start working your way to the top, and I have covered stories by courageous people who've tried to sue the Vatican regarding genocide in Croatia. When I watched the Tony Alamo Ministry try and defend itself, it was like David and Goliath. They were being lied to, railroaded in every particular manner. And the second prong after putting Tony in jail was to begin to round up the children like cattle, and using the corrupt DHS services to do that. So most of the children from that ministry were put into foster care, and their lives have deteriorated since. Parents not allowed to see them. Those that were true to Tony would not listen to the government, who wanted them to lie to convict Tony Alamo, and they were told, we can get your children back then. Well, some parents couldn't do that. And there are many children that haven't seen their parents because of this, and I call it straight kidnapping. Then the next approach is all the civil cases, where they're now trying to take all the property to wipe this ministry off the face of the earth. That is the Vatican-led New World Order. That is freedom of speech and freedom of religion in this country. We have a Protestant organization now. The Protestant churches are the big problem. They are nothing more than being annexed by the Catholic Church because they're afraid or will not speak up against what's really going on in this country. We choose to ignore it. And those that don't find 2 things: peace by finding the truth, and also those that have been called to bring more people into the flock For example, this ministry who tries to get out to as many people, they are the ones that feel the biggest brunt of the Vatican-led New World Order. With that, and covering this for 7 or 8 years and watching Hollywood, watching actors like Matt Damon come out publicly and say, I'm glad that Tony Alamo's in jail. Then watching people like Oprah Winfrey get on the bandwagon working for these people. All the mainstream papers covering this thing from a one-sided approach. That is the Vatican side. That is to depict the Alamo Ministry as a cult, to depict its members as nothing more than brainwashed victims, and then to say in their civil court cases that they're not even human beings and do not deserve to own property even after they worked for it with their own hands. Now, in the same time, look at the Vatican. Pedophile charges all over the world. You know, we have a Pope, the Benedict, who's still around, who put out a written document that has been proven as factual, telling the bishops around the world to hide any kind of pedophilia from the law enforcement agencies, and ecclesiastical law will take over. Nothing more than obstruction of justice, but was he ever charged? No. Have you ever seen a Catholic school been shut down because a priest was a pedophile? No. Have you ever seen their property being taken away? No. Now there's a double standard here, and don't people think about that? No. Because the media brainwashing on the Alamo Ministry being a cult satisfies their investigative tendencies. They don't investigate. They listen to the media go on and say, well, it didn't happen to me, and forget about it. Well, it is happening to you, and you will see in the future that your freedoms are limited to a point where you'll have none if you deal in their system. Now, I've shown for years, I've tried to find out who the enemy is. I've tried to understand who it is. But now it is time to look and see how to live with it, how to understand it, and how to move forward. Now, being a journalist, one of the things I wondered was, why was this coverage so slanted? So I've decided to take the bull by the horns and find out myself. It's a daunting task. I'm in the process of compiling over 250 to 300 media outlets. I'm sending not only electronic mail, because that to me is suspect. I am sending hand mail. With this press release I'm going to release on YouTube, that I have released, and I'm going to play it for you, along with a 6-minute audio-video recording about really what the Alamo Ministry is, that was not covered by the mainstream, that they didn't want you to understand they did anything good. They were brainwashed victims who had no minds. Their pastor was nothing more than a child abuser, and they don't deserve to own property. That was the story you got. When in fact, if you really look at this, the Vatican is the biggest cult around, and they're protected, and when I say they, the powers that be, all they do is charge other ministries that are a threat, in a sense, because really what they want is the status quo. And when somebody starts, ringing the bell a little too loud, like the Alamo Ministry, guess what happens? Here's what happens. Just what you saw, just what you heard in my opening statement. Now, let me play this audio, this press release. I've made a verbal copy, and I'm sending a hard copy to all of these places to see if we can get anybody to cover the story, to see if I can be interviewed, to see if I could have a radio show on some of these stations. And let's see, taking the bull by the horns, let's see how they react. Now, let me play this press release for the Alamo Ministry being targeted. Here we go.
This is a press release being sent to over 250 media outlets. Please contact Greg Anthony at the Investigative Journal. Remember the Alamo Ministry. Pastors framed, children kidnapped, land stolen. In 2008, a well-orchestrated SWAT team raid took place at a peaceful Christian ministry in Fork, Arkansas, the culmination of FBI, IRS, and BATF harassment. All big nationwide media outlets were contacted, and they were quick to convict Pastor Alamo of child abuse. The ministry, depicted as a cult, its members, brainwashed victims, children, rounded up like cattle, the state saying their lives were in danger. And anyone listening to this story on the big nightly news channels was given the impression another cult had been toppled. As the days went on, the story continued to receive nationwide coverage, but one thing conveniently left out, the ministry side of the story. Jumping on the bandwagon, a number of daytime talk show hosts like Oprah Winfrey featured the story, echoing the same one-sided coverage. Even people like Matt Damon chimed in, saying, "I'm glad he's in jail." The Alamo criminal trial lasted all of 10 days with a 175-year prison sentence imposed. The media, again, quickly proclaiming justice served, while a small minority, never heard in the press, called it the worst kangaroo court ever. The future child court custody cases rendered the same verdict to ministry parents. Children taken into custody, fostered out, never to see their parents again. Again, the media proclaimed justice served, and a small minority, never heard in the press, claimed state kidnapping since no abuse was ever found. Then came the civil cases, still going on today, to take away the ministry property in an ongoing effort to wipe them off the face of the earth. Now the question must be asked, was justice ever served here? We at the Investigative Journal think not. After 10 years of investigating this case, we find one of the biggest travesties of justice to take place in the history of this country. If the truth be told, the Alamo case will show there is no freedom of religion or speech here any longer. Please contact us at the Investigative Journal so a tragedy like this never happens again. We have the facts, never told in court or in the press, to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that 1. Tony Alamo was framed and imprisoned for 175 years for his political and spiritual views, violating all constitutional protections. Further, no evidence was ever found of child abuse in his case. Children were taken at gunpoint and forever placed in the state custody when no abuse charges were ever proven. And 3, the ministry land has been illegally taken and confiscated by the state, violating all constitutional protections. Please allow me the opportunity to present this case to the American people in order that this tragedy doesn't happen again. Whether you have a publication or print, television, radio, in the mainstream or in the alternative, contact me for an interview at gregbeacon@gmail.com, greganthony@jd. And thank you. Here is a 6-minute video showing the true nature of the Alamo Ministry, never told before in the mainstream media.
The central purpose and mission of the Tony Alamo Christian Ministries is the Great Commission, to bring the gospel to the whole world, as Christ commanded, to feed the hungry, to visit the sick and imprisoned, and to offer help and hope to a lost and dying world. Our doctrine has always been and still is the Old and New Testament of the King James Version of the Bible, with no private interpretations. God's Word means what it says. From its early years in the 1960s in Hollywood, Pastors Tony and Susan Alamo formed the church and patterned it after the first Christian churches in the book of Acts. As it did then, our ministry still operates as a cooperative, interdependent body of believers, working together and supporting each other in our newfound salvation. All resources brought into the ministry are used to provide for the needs of the members, and everything above is used to spread the gospel throughout the world. As the ministry quickly grew, we labored in fields, hoeing cotton and working in vineyards and orchards to provide food, housing, clothing, transportation, and eventually TV broadcasts, which featured our zealous choir and orchestra, comprised of former hippies, drug addicts, and people from all walks of life, converted converted to Christianity and completely rehabilitated through our ministry. These programs also featured testimonies of new converts, won to the Lord by Pastors Tony and Susan Alamo, and a message of salvation through the blood of Jesus Christ by Susan Alamo. Our ministry is now worldwide, reaching across the United States and into many nations through radio, books, and Bibles, and the distribution of powerful gospel literature, either purchased or printed at our own facilities, staffed by our own skilled volunteer printers who are in turn supported by the ministry. We also distribute audio messages duplicated at our own facilities. Many other needs, including finances, food, water wells and fresh water tanks, clothing, vehicles, and housing, to name a few, are regularly provided to ministries and individuals overseas. All materials we ship throughout the United States or overseas is free, including postage and handling. Our worldwide outreach serves thousands of pastors and evangelists, and they express their thanks in the many letters and emails we receive daily. A sampling of these letters is always printed in our gospel literature, which is translated into many languages. Our translation department works with United Nations translators and other professionals and volunteers to accomplish this. We maintain the Alamo Ministry's website, through which we receive large volumes of requests for free gospel literature, Bibles, and other needs. Our website receives traffic from 55 to 70 countries per week. We also distribute literature by the millions, Bibles and audio gospel messages in major cities and small towns throughout the United States. On each piece of literature are the addresses of our locations, where worship services are held every night, and free, nutritious meals are carefully prepared and always provided at all of our locations. Also on each piece of literature is stated that we provide a place to live with all things necessary for life to those in our United States locations who truly want to serve the Lord with all their heart, soul, mind, and strength. We list our telephone line, answered 7 days a week, around the clock, by ministry members, ready to answer questions, to pray with people, and to take their requests for literature, Bibles, and other assistance. It is for these and other ministerial purposes that we have pooled together to work for, buy, build, renovate, maintain, and pay utilities and taxes on our various properties. These are our homes, our apartments, our places of worship, our cafeterias, our schools, our gyms, and warehouses, to care for our families and to carry out our missionary work. Every member of our ministry knows and understands that we are the owners and beneficiaries of these properties and all the resources and holdings of our ministry. We prepare the meals. We eat in our cafeterias. We worship at our gathering places, whether they be church structures, dining rooms, or in our homes. We work together so that we can reach out more effectively, visiting hospitals and nursing homes, providing food and other needs and supplies for needy families, delivering food by the truckload to missions, food kitchens, and disaster sites. We are Christian, law-abiding individuals who of our own free will have joined together as a church, a corporate body of believers, to do all we can for the Lord by working together to reach out to every soul we possibly can and share the truth of the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Okay, so there we go. I wanted to play that 6-minute video to show you what this ministry really is all about. If you've listened to my show in the past, you may think that all they do is criticize the Vatican and its political connections and its corruption and graft. But that's just a part of it. the big part of their ministry goes way beyond that. It goes beyond criticism. It goes beyond what you may hear on my show. I'm covering this from a journalist point of view on a story that needs to be told. And I was very happy to find some minister and some group of people that would be willing to step out and tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Because the real story of the Vatican is that you can't leave it out. You don't have to make it the main focus of your life, but you cannot preach the Gospels. You cannot talk to your parishioners without telling them the truth. And that is my gripe. That is my concern about Protestantism today. They do not give the whole truth to their parishioners. They whitewash it. They leave out the Vatican, and they, in fact, join hands with that group. Join hands with the beast. And what does the Bible say about that? What does your conscience say about that? My conscience says I don't want to be involved with people like that in any way, shape, or form. And the Bible talks about it even in more stricter terms. You have an obligation not only to not be involved with them, but to tell people about them. And that's exactly what this ministry did. And that is why they've been persecuted by the beast. And I call the beast the Vatican. And I've looked at it from many points of view. But I wanted you to hear, I wanted you to know that this ministry did far, far much more than that. But I asked Pastor Alamo this before he was put in jail. Why didn't you just ignore the Vatican? They might not have bothered you. He said he couldn't. He said ignoring the Vatican is ignoring the Word of God. And he's paid the price. And I've seen others that have tried to tell the truth pay the price as well. And that's the point we're at in this country. Now, here's what I want to do. I want to say this, and I may slide this over into the second half hour, and I want to do a few other things because I have some more interviews lined up with this ministry in the days to come. But I wanted to say that in my road of life, in my walk of life, I received a law degree, and after I received that degree, I decided to not take the bar exam and continue this journalistic endeavor to understand who this beast was, because 10 years ago, or whenever I graduated 15 years ago, I didn't understand it as well, but now I do. And I've decided it's time for me to continue this show, but I'm also now in the preparation to study for the bar exam and within a year take it. And I promise that if I can pass this exam in California, which is the hardest place to pass it, I am going to take up this cause and see if I can get some justice in the system. And if there's any people in the Alamo Ministry that need help, if Tony still needs help, I will help him that way. And I will help others. There are many cases that can be brought against this institution if you have courageous lawyers that'll do it. Maybe it's my turn to step up. And it's time for me to step up and do this. All in due time, as God says, right? Well, maybe this is what I can do in the future, besides my journalistic endeavors, to help this organization and others like them. Back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal.
You're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com worldwide. Freedom is never free. We need your support today at FirstAmendmentRadio.com.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening. Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity, invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host, Melody Cedarstrom, right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free, 1-800-375-4188.
Okay, we're back for the second half hour on this November 10th, 2015 day on our calendar. And in the first half hour, I discussed the press release and the case of the Alamo Ministry and how they've been targeted by the Vatican-led New World Order, and tried to outline a few things that I'll be doing in the future, as well as showing you the other side of the story about them and what they really do. Because as I said, if you listen to my show, you might think that's all they do is criticize the Vatican. That's just a portion of it, but an important portion, because under the, with the statement, you cannot just, edit the Bible, edit the truth. You have to go all the way and present all the facts, and that's why I admired these people. And through their efforts, they have enlightened a lot of people to research this story. And they've touched people in so many different ways, in ways that I probably can't imagine. In a sense, people who had no other place to go, who were looking for help, and then those that did but chose a different road. The road of truth and good, not the road of evil. And I'm just going to make it very general when I say that. So let's leave that story. And I'll be back to it as usual in the upcoming days. I'm lining up some more interviews, and I will keep you abreast of what happens with all the press releases I'm sending out to the media to see if we can get some more attention on this story, and to really call them on their inaccuracies, to call them on their slanted coverage, to call them on their obvious hidden agenda here. That's why this story is important. I played yesterday a show on media deception, and I was commenting on a video someone put out regarding that subject. Many good points he brought up. And I hope this is a perfect example of how they operate, because it shows you, 1, slanted coverage, 2, a connection with our government, and 3, a hidden agenda with the Vatican. And so I hope my press release opens the eyes of a few people, and I can get this story out. Now, accordingly, I mentioned that I've been in the journalism profession as well as the law profession, having a law degree and working with many different law firms over the years. But never have passed the bar exam for purposes of my own. Not that I haven't, who knows, maybe I can't. These exams are extremely, extremely difficult. And I've seen many good people. In fact, one person I graduated from law school would make a great lawyer, has now on his 16th attempt to pass the bar. That's 8 years of his life. So, and then, of course, I know some people who pass on the first time, and to me, they were like blockheads in law school. Very rote, very unthinking people. But maybe that's what the law profession wants. People who can think in the box, not out of the box. My question is, Abraham Lincoln never went to law school. And if you look back at the legal history and how the bar works, you'll see what I'm saying. But anyway, I believe it's a worthy cause to do that at this point in my life, and maybe to help some people, if I can, in this area. All right, let's leave that. Now, this is an interesting subject I wanted to get on, and it's completely away from the Alamo Ministry and everything, but although, you're going to see deception here again, and we've had just an influx of people talking about whether the earth is a globe or whether the earth is flat. Now, I have friends on both sides of the coin, listeners who are very adamant about the fact that the earth is flat, and we've been lied to completely by NASA. And then I have other friends who believe the earth is a globe. And I've had friends who say the Bible supports the globe theory. I've had friends who say the Bible supports the flat earth theory. Now, you're going to find a lot of stuff out there, and I've done stories on it in the past. And what I did is I wanted to give you my thoughts in about 18 minutes here. It'll take me about 18 minutes to tell you this, regarding my thoughts on this subject as a journalist. And what I'm saying is the flat earth theory, it's an introduction, and it's a journalist's view.
Well, good afternoon, and welcome to the Investigative Journal YouTube channel. I'm your host, Greg Anthony, from the long-running radio show, the Investigative Journal, that you can find right now on FirstAmendmentRadio.com, or you can go to ArcticBeacon.com and get a lot of my old shows. Well, I'm going to spend a few minutes with you, and the reason is to introduce the flat earth theory to you. I'm sure you've heard about it by now if you go on the internet. About 3 years ago, there was this unbelievable rush to get to these stories that were appearing about the flat earth. Nobody much talked about it before. And in this short little video, I'm going to comment as a journalist would comment. Now, to give you a little bit of a background, I was a journalist out of college in the mainstream, found out they were big liars. I then went over to the alternative radio and news and found out many of those are controlled outlets. And now I broadcast on a small Christian station that'll accept some of the things that I've researched from the time that I lived for 7 years in Rome and understood what I call now the Vatican-led New World Order. Now, these videos that I'll do many and many more subjects, but I'm going to just introduce, as a journalist would introduce, a third party, disinterested party, would introduce this, what I call a phenomenon on the internet over the flat earth theory. A few years ago, you never heard anything about it. Now, years and years ago, I knew NASA was a bunch of big liars as I researched the fake moon landings, and at that point, many even in my family thought I was a bit off my rocker. But the facts showed that it was impossible that NASA went to the moon, and I figured, well, they lie about some things, but some things have to be true. Now, When this story came out, when I started reading about the flat earth theory, my first thought was that I'm not going to live in the Dark Ages. But sometimes the people back then used their common sense. And so I started to look at it with an open mind and found out that today I believe NASA has lied about everything. Some of the things that I find that NASA has done is just incredible. I mean, the ISS space station, and you go to their 24-hour feed, if you believe those images, it's kind of like watching a Hollywood movie, and maybe that's what it is. And then when you go to Hollywood, by the way, which I'm a part of, I'm also an actor, got into the entertainment business just to have some fun in life. And it seems like that's the only organizations I ever join, those that are really there entrenched to push along the New World Order theory. For example, American journalism. It's just an arm of the New World Order. That's why the more we say we're free, the less free we are, and we have no free newspapers. Take it from me. I worked in the business for a long time, probably before a lot of you were born. Now then, I decided to do some Hollywood movies in Rome when I was there to make a little bit of money and to enjoy life a bit. And little do you know, years later, most of Hollywood is in their pocket as well. And along the way, I got a law degree. And then I find out the legal profession is nothing but a sham at the highest levels. And I always say the most endangered species is an honest judge. Now, getting back to this flat earth theory, is it crazy? From a journalist's point of view, let's look at it from all aspects. And this is just my introduction video, because in the future, I'm going to present to you all of the things that I'm finding that people are doing. And some of them are incredibly interesting. Some of them are incredibly stupid. Some of them are done by guys who control the opposition, who have, some people say the reason this flat earth theory is out there is because the Jesuit order in the Vatican and the powers that be want it out there. Now, that may be true, but the point I think is this: if they do it like they do with other truth movements, for example, 9/11, for example, Waco, all these other things, the, Oklahoma bombing, all these false flags, all these different things that are truth movements to find out the truth about chemtrails, etc., etc. What you find out is that a lot of the information is true, but they have to get in there controlling that information so that the real truth isn't found out. I believe the same thing exists in the flat earth theory. Now, am I going to take a position on whether it is flat or we live on a globe? As a journalist, in the beginning I didn't. And I presented myself and looked at the information as I would any other story. And I've come to the conclusion that we're probably not living on a globe, and we're probably not spinning around like they say, and we probably never went to the moon, and we most likely are, and I say categorically without question, being lied to by NASA. No doubt in my mind. So anything they say, I don't believe. It's not credible. So the fact that the Earth may not be the shape that we're told it is makes a lot of sense to me. And some of the things that you're going to hear in the future regarding what I think are the most important points when you start looking at the flat Earth, a lot of it has to do with your common sense. A lot of it has to do with false research done by NASA. Why would they be lying and presenting us with CGI images of the supposed Earth when they're up in space, supposedly taking pictures? If it were true, they wouldn't have anything to hide. But I think they have a lot to hide. And the reason I think they have a lot to hide is because if they showed us the truth, they would know that we cannot really go up as high as they say we can. And it all starts there. But they know that most people can never, ever categorically, without a question, prove it to be so, because they'll never go there. Now, saying that 99.9% of us will never, ever get to the top of the world, so to speak, if they say it is, or into space, they can probably tell us anything and we'd believe it. Now, for those people out there who have shown great information about the Earth being a flat Earth, a circle Earth, with Antarctica being a big ice wall that surrounds everything, and the North Pole right in the middle, smack dab in the middle, that theory is difficult for those who want to prove it with their eyes, because how many of us are ever going to get a chance to go that far into the oceans of the world in any direction? But when you look at the facts about the solar system, when you look at the sun and the moon's movements, when you look at the seasons, when you look at the stars, when you look at all these things, they cannot exist in my mind when you rationally think about it in a globular Earth. So there's a lot to explore, and as a journalist, I looked at it for hundreds of hours, and still doing it, and found this for you. You're going to find that there are controlled opposition, or people that work for the New World Order, Vatican-led New World Order, that are out there presenting all these videos and all this stuff. I don't know exactly who they are, but they're there. They're there for a reason. And the question you have to ask is, did this movement get started by them for a reason? And if so, why? Are they reaching a level? They tell us everything in plain sight. All of their monuments, all of their signals and signs, they're told to us. That's why when you look at the, monument in Washington, which is called, the Freedom Monument in Washington, D.C., it's an obelisk that worships Isis, a goddess of Egypt. It worships pagan goddesses, just as the obelisk does in the Vatican and the one in London. So there's a sign that they're showing you, but they're telling you a different story. Now, if the controlled opposition, if they were the people that started this movement, which they very well could be, it doesn't discount the fact that it could be true. But what's true? What are they hiding? Where do they want to lead you? And do they want to lead you away from the truth? So then everybody gets on the bandwagon, and many people out there who are looking to find the truth, have to wade through all this information like they do in most every other truth movement. It happened to me when I was trying to get to the truth about 9/11. I didn't realize at that point, a year or two after 9/11, and for a few years I researched that story, that many of the people I talked to were actually working for the other side and leading you in the wrong direction. And I presented story after story showing certain things that will teach you how to get through all that. And my next point to you is, it is human nature to want to immediately argue with these people, whether it be the controlled opposition in 9/11, whether it be the controlled opposition in any truth movement you want, whether, when you start researching the Vatican, you run into so many people that will start saying, no, it's the Jews, no, it's the Vatican who controls the New World Order, and you find that some are relying on information they're getting from wrong sources, and some are relying on basically lack of knowledge. And thirdly, you got to wade through all of the disinformation artists that are out there in that campaign. They exist all over. In the chemtrails, in the microwave weaponry movement, in most every movement, you will find that you have controlled opposition or people actually being paid by the New World Order to lead you in that direction. That's what makes the internet so interesting and fun for me, because it makes it one step. You have to go one step above what you actually see, hear, and read. And you have to rely, one, on your instincts, one, on your free thinking, and one, on this one very important principle. Get everything out and then make up your own mind. Be a free-thinking person. There aren't many left. And this idea of a flat or globe Earth is a very important thing, because they're telling you probably now what the world is really like, but you're not going to believe it, or you're going to believe the people that tell you some of the wrong information where they want you to go to believe it, in sense, so that you'll never get to the truth. Wow, it's a lot to swallow, right? But we're going to piece through it on the Investigative Journal YouTube channel, and you'll catch a lot of that on my radio shows too, which I've done a number of them now. But let's look at it from a perspective as a journalist looking at the story from the outside looking in. Take away all your beliefs. Take away everything you learned when you were a child. Take away it all. Even take it away today, whatever you may believe about the flat earth or the round, and start looking at it objectively. And what I mean by that is, look at all the information. And my key to you is what I found, and I learned this the hard way. It's human nature, like I said, to start wanting to argue with people that you know have to be working on the other side, but you can't prove it. They have a lot more money than you, a lot more listeners. People are not very savvy to this, especially in the United States, a very gullible population. I find people in Europe a little bit more receptive, and I lived there a long time. I don't know why. I don't think they've been brainwashed as badly as us. They don't have the opportunity to be because of the economic situations, I think. But anyway, one failure what I made was that I really fell into their trap. I wanted to, that guy has to. Now I say to you this, the best way to do it is don't care. For example, Alex Jones. What's the difference whether he is a shill or not? The point is, you're going to know some of the bogus information he gives out, and you're going to hear some of the information that you know is true that's going to help you figure the truth out. But don't fall into this trap of believing everything he says. And whether he works for them or not, hey, it's a free country, right? He wants to work for the New World Order Vatican, go right ahead. But a good example, don't listen to some of the things he's saying about the Vatican now, because he's leading you down the wrong step. Years ago, when I first started talking about it, he called me crazy. I used to have a show right after his. Crazy to talk about the Vatican. This guy's lunatic. Then they started spreading all these different kind of rumors that weren't true, and I said, hey, I am on the right direction here. But guess what? Most of the people would believe him because he's got a bigger listenership, and they knew it. My point is, everything has to be on the table, and you're not going to get it all unless, in fact, there's even people that talk about the Jesuits and say they're anti-Jesuits that aren't. You got to figure those guys out too. And instead of me calling out names and doing all that kind of stuff, which I would have probably done in the past, I've learned it really doesn't make a bit of difference. But what makes a difference is you getting the proper information and understanding that they're out there, they're never going to leave, and you're going to have to deal with it. Now, in the Flat Earth movement, it's no different. I believe that you have to look at it from many aspects. First, let's look at it from the controlled opposition, bringing it to the forefront, and then everybody catching on. Most of the people are going to head off into the direction where they get, the biggest guys, the guys who put out the most videos, the guys who do all this stuff. And perhaps what they're saying is peppered with a lot of things that aren't true. I don't think that a controlled opposition guy would, and the Jesuits and all these guys that know the real truth about the shape of this earth and what lies on the other side of those ice walls that surround us and what's really above us and how high we really can go. I don't think they want you to know the exact truth. I think they prefer you to follow a little bit of the truth and then go the wrong way. And secondly, have many people call you crazy. And so in the end, they've told you, but not everything. And that's really how they operate. So we're going to forget all. We're going to remember all that. And we're going to try to figure out what, in these flat earth videos that I'm going to do in the future, what is the most logical shape of this earth, and what is the information that leads us to believe that? And where can we go, or how can we go to get to the truth beyond what they are hiding from us, because that Antarctica Treaty is set up to keep us out of something, keep us away from finding something. So if we can get past that Antarctic Treaty and all of their military presence around the globe, or, see what I mean? That's what I'm talking about, brainwashing. You will say it even though you know it isn't, or have good belief that it isn't, because you've heard it so much. But if we could get past that wall, what exactly would we find? And why can't we? Because they have all the money and they waste it. Well, they don't in a sense. They use it for NASA to keep us looking above and thinking about fake aliens and all that stuff, while really what lies here is right at the edge of the earth. And can we ever get there? I think we could do it. And I'm going to propose some ways to do it and how financially we could get together and do it. But anyway, that's for another show. Listen, thanks for listening. We'll be back again on the Investigative Journal YouTube channel.
Okay, so I do this interpretation of the flat earth, knowing that there are people out there who believe that it is, and knowing that there's others that don't, and both sides using biblical scriptures at times to prove their point. And the reason I'm doing it is maybe it'll take a little of the pressure off you so you can spend your time on other things, because there are many, many more important things out there outside of the shape of this earth. But it would be nice, it's always nice to have something in the background like this kind of story, to think about all the time when you're doing the really important things in life. Because I think before I leave this earth, I'd like to know exactly what shape it is. Wouldn't it be nice? But we'll see in the future if we can do that. Well, I hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back tomorrow on the Investigative Journal.